I look at you both and I see highly skilled professionals. Dr. Monique, very amazing doctor, and Josh, Treasurer of Australia. Isn't the country and the community better served if you both keep your current jobs?
I'll vote for that. Look, as I said, I'm from my community, I'm for my community. Every single day I have woken up, I've asked myself, what more can I do for the people of Kooyong? What more can I do for the people of Australia? I know people in this room, and there's only a couple of masks in this whole room, have gone through a lot over the last few years, a lot. But now we're coming out of it. And we're coming out of it because Australians have come together. And our economic plan from the federal government is working. The fact that we have had a faster and stronger economic recovery than any other major advanced economy in the world is not luck. In the United States, there are 1.5 million fewer Americans in work today than at the start of COVID. Yet here in Australia, there are 400,000 more Australians who are in work today because of COVID. And for the 700,000 jobs that we saved with JobKeeper, each one of those is a mum or a dad, a son or a daughter, or a brother or a sister. So I don't see my job as Treasurer of Australia as about achieving headline economic numbers. I see my job as Treasurer of Australia as helping the people behind the numbers. And we want to continue to see that massive investment in the NDIS or in mental health or in women's safety or in our public hospitals or in our local schools or our local roads. But all of that comes back to what you are able to achieve with a strong economy. Because if you don't have a strong economy, you can't list every drug on the PBS. If you don't have a strong economy, you can't build all those roads that you need. If you don't have a strong economy, you can't lower taxes so that people can keep more of what they earn.
Okay, let's hear from Dr. Ryan now.
Well, I don't agree that we have a strong economy right now, and I'd really love to speak to that too.
Sure.
But the first thing I'd like to do is to answer your question. And the honest response is that I had a job that I loved and that I was very, very good at. And I was very sad to leave it. The reason why I left it is because I am a scientist, and I've looked at the IPCC, which tells us that this planet is heading towards unprecedented stresses. We're heading for a 1.5 degree Celsius increase in global temperatures and beyond. That is the existential threat for us right now. It's the threat for our children and our children's children. And Mr Frydenberg's government is being held to ransom by Barnaby Joyce and his ilk, and not taking effective action on what we have to do, which is action on climate change. And the Labor Party aren't doing it either. And so that's why you've got people like me who are stepping away from important jobs where we have had a valuable contribution and feeling that we have to put up our hand and do this. We have to make a difference. The reality is that we can. After this next election, people like myself may very well be in a position where we can make a difference, and that's why I'm doing this.
And you said it's not a strong economy, but by comparison to most like nations around the world, we're doing very well through the pandemic, aren't we?
No, Kieran, we're not. We've got a $1 trillion debt. The deficit is this year with the current budget is the largest in our lifetime. Inflation is rampant. We've just had a first interest rate rise in 10 years, and we know that there's more coming. The price of everything is going up, and in real terms, our wages are going down. Tell me how that is a successful economy, and tell me what the plan is for the next 3 to 6 years.
But what can you do as an independent?
As an independent?
On that issue? I
can hold the government to account for the waste in the spending that we've seen. If we just look at Mr Frydenberg's JobKeeper, $88 billion was spent. We needed a stimulus, no question asked. But $38 billion of the $88 billion went to companies that did not need it.
That's not true.
And they did not pay it back.
It's completely not true. Firstly, 98 to 99% of the recipients of JobKeeper were small businesses or not-for-profits. And JobKeeper saved more than 700,000 jobs, and that was the independent assessment of the Governor of the Reserve Bank. And it's easy for Australians to forget what the world was like back in March and April 2020. Literally hundreds of thousands of our fellow Australians were lining up outside Centrelink having left their jobs. I met with small businesses here who were convinced their doors would remain closed permanently, and for many on the edge of retirement would lose their life savings. When we announced JobKeeper, we put a security blanket across the economy to the point that now we have a stronger and faster recovery than every major advanced economy. Now, I'll be very happy to debate Monique every single day about the economy, because she referred to the fact that we have higher inflation, and so does the rest of the world. And if you looked at the statement from the Reserve Bank, they pointed to the main driver. That were their words. The main driver were international factors, and you even referred to it there in relation to Ukraine with the spike in fuel prices. That's why we provided, at a cost of $3 billion to the taxpayer, a halving of the fuel excise. And we've put in place a whole series of measures to support the economy. Now, one of the local constituents here contacted Monique Ryan's office to ask, what is your position on tax? And the response came back in writing, we have no tax policy. Now, that was from her campaign manager. So we've got a so-called independent who is asking for the public's voice and vote, who says on their billboards, strong economy, yet has no policy on tax, which is absolutely fundamental. And finally, on the issue of climate change, I'm all for reducing our carbon footprint. And I've explained we've got a technology investment map to do so. But when Monique Ryan says her target is 60%, and Neil Mitchell asks her the direct question, what is the cost of your plan? She responded word for word, that was unreasonable, an unreasonable question. It's not unreasonable to tell the local community what the cost of your plan is.
Okay, well, let's get a response. Dr. Ryan?
I'm very glad to see that Mr. Frydenberg's been keeping such a close eye on my local footprint.
As you'd expect me to.
I think it's a mark of respect, Josh. When Neil Mitchell asked me about my costings for action on climate change, and I said, I can't answer that question. There's a simple reason for that. My policy is to support Zali Steggall's Climate Change Act. Now, that is not a legislation to take action on climate change. It is an act that provides a legislative framework that will hold the government to a 2050 net zero commitment. So there's not a costing associated with that. It's not that sort of a bill. It's a bill that will put that framework in place. What we do have is work from the University of Melbourne, which has shown us that to take Australia to net zero by 2050 will cost $86 billion. Just for reference, that's one JobKeeper scheme. But that seems expensive. But the cost of not doing that, of the unmitigated climate emergencies and disasters that we would experience if we don't do that, is $2 trillion.
What about the tax policy?
So on
You
tax
don't have
policy,
tax.
well, so tax reform is really important for this country. We certainly need it. When I go out in the streets of Kooyong, one of the three major concerns that young people tell me that they have is the fact that they cannot see how they're going to be able to afford a home in their lifetime. Yes, we need tax reform. And pensioners and older people are really struggling as well. They're in a really difficult position right now. It's very disappointing that neither of the major parties has brought any vision for tax reform for this country to this election. But it's not my job as an independent to come up with a fully fledged idea for tax reform for this country. What we don't want is band-aid payments given to us with a budget, but with an election, very, very looming. And what we don't want is short-term solutions like the low and middle income, the cuts to low and middle income tax earners who now don't know what's going to happen with them, with their taxes in the next 6 to 12 months.
We've got a question.